Iate si pelletier yenishe maide shkijni initially bilagana bashashin kinla chitni dashache bilagana dashanale. Welcome back to Resball. It's been over a month since we potted, and in the meantime, the Pistons have still continued to roll. They finally got 10 losses. Who knew it would take until basically the beginning of January? Only the OKC Thunder remain as the only team in the NBA with single-digit losses. But hey, Pistons are still rolling due to their depth, which is what this podcast is all about. So let's get started right about now. Like I said, I haven't recorded in about a month. So happy new year to everybody. It's 2026, although I'm still going to be writing 2025 on things for a while. It always takes me like a month to figure out, oh yeah, it's not last year anymore. Real quick before we get into what we're going to talk about today with the depth and everything, a couple injury concerns. The last couple games, Cade's out with a wrist injury, Duran's out with an ankle injury, Tobias with a hip injury. It sounds like Tobias is going to be out for about 2 weeks, and they will reevaluate him, quote unquote, in 2 weeks. So you all know what that means. And then Stu was out with an illness in that last game. Real quick, Andy, any concerns with any of these injuries on these guys?
No. I mean, in some ways, I think the Cade thing is good, just as far as getting him rest. Like they have a stretch where they have a bunch of days off. So it literally gives him a bunch of time just to refresh. We've talked about this earlier in the season that their record is good enough. They have bought themselves some times to give him some windows to rest and recover, especially when you see some big names going down with injuries. It's like lower his load. He carries a big load. He plays a lot of minutes. Like I'm fine with that. Um, Duran, I think. I still have a question mark because he always has ankle issues that he'll always roll an ankle a couple times for the season, miss a few games. And for me, that's something you have to consider because, and I'm wishing for complete health, but there's going to be a time where he rolls an ankle where it may be a longer stretch, and that just has to be something you're worried about. But currently, right now, I mean, Tobias had been playing like it looked like he needed some time off because he was starting to go through a rough stretch. And honestly, the way JB was playing him to start the season with all those minutes, rest was good for him too. And for other guys to develop and play, like it's not bad. The team is deep, so I have no injury concerns.
So before we get into the rest, I forgot to tell you, let everybody know where they can find you online before we get started into our talk about depth.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
It's been 12 games since we last potted. What have you enjoyed most in these last 12 games, Andy?
I the depth on this team, just you always have a different player stepping up, which is nice. Like Danis had a crazy game with assists. I think he also had a crazy game with scoring. Stu had a crazy game scoring. And so one of the knocks that I had on Stu like a season ago or something, where people would talk about like PJ Washington or someone else, like Stu's never had big scoring nights. And I honestly didn't think it was something that potentially was there. And so getting those, for me, that shows a lot. Like that shows a lot as far as like what he could be doing more of and what there's potential to do. It also raises question marks because JB in the rotation, Stu's minutes are always limited. And it's like, why doesn't the guy get more minutes? But everything I've seen, and then also just Jaden Ivey and his minutes, I expected those minutes to go up and they haven't. So that would be a concern.
Yeah, in regards to the stew, I probably will bring us up when we do the State of the Pistons pod, which we normally do at the All-Star break, because I'm hoping it's going to change by then. But right now, Stu is playing 23.7 minutes per game. And it's something I brought up before where if I'm his agent, I'm like, this guy can win Defensive Player of the Year, but you're limiting his minutes so much. And we've talked about him ad nauseum. And so many people have talked about him and his defense. They put up infographics the Pistons put out last week that Stu is leading the NBA at defending at the rim. He has the lowest percentage out of anybody. And if you look at all the block metrics, block percentages, total blocks, blocks per game, Stu is neck and neck with Victor Wembanyama. Only Jay Huff, the magical Jay Huff. I mean, he's having a monster season. Jay Huff's number one in most of those measurable blocking statistics. Shout out to Jay Huff. And speaking of limiting minutes, the Pacers are playing him like 19 minutes per game. Real quick, my thought on that is just like, in order to tank, they have to play J off a lot less, and even then, he's still like putting up all these ridiculous block numbers. But Stu and Wembanyama are neck and neck. Again, I always joke about it. Wembanyama is like a foot taller than him, but Stu is still beating him at the percentages at the rim and pacing him in blocks. And they're not playing him in as much minutes as Wembanyama, who's the number one guy. So again, we'll return to that. In the 12 games since we last potted, though, my number two things are I am so happy anytime this Piston squad can just embarrass the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm glad they were the ones to show everybody, yeah, this team is a fraud. This team sucks. And lo and behold, we're on January 14th, 2026. And gee, I wonder what happened with DeAndre Ayton. Everybody's already turned on him. There's the LeBron staring at him meme, which people showed the Kyrie staring, like, no, LeBron staring at Kyrie, LeBron staring at D Wade, and the whole like, this is the look when you're about to get traded. So yeah, they curb stomped the Lakers. That was an amazing game. Shout out to the Pistons for doing that. And then I don't want to necessarily call it a revenge game, but definitely one they marked on their calendar against the Knicks. Again, another one where they just came out and totally stomped them and wanted to prove a point of like, yeah, we're definitely the number one seed right now, and we got this depth, and you are not ready. You think you had a hard time handling us last season. Guess what? We're so much improved now. And yeah, 121 to 90 against the Knicks. And then the Laker one was 128 to 106. The Laker one too, they came out flat against the Clippers. The Clippers stomped them. And then it's like, oh, the Clippers aren't nearly as good as the Lakers. And then it was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe the Lakers and the Clippers are kind of in the same boat. And then the one real thing that nobody saw coming in these last 12 games is the explosion of Marcus Sasser, who we didn't even think he was going to play. But like you said, he had one game where he just blew up. And all of a sudden, he's starting to see minutes in this Pistons rotation. He's only played 10 games, but man, 54.5% from two, 47.8% from three, and then perfect from the free throw line so far. He's definitely made a case for himself. And I remember us and a couple people trying to throw him in trades and other people shooting it down. Like, I don't think he's going to be worth anything. It's like, well, he's proven that wrong. So definitely going to have some value to teams of like, hey, that guy can really shoot the ball. And he came out like gangbusters. He's completely healthy. So even if Sasser doesn't stay with this team, he's definitely exploded to help himself in the trade market and be a piece that's cheap that a lot of teams could want potentially in the trade market.
I would agree with those assessments. And it makes it even like Chaz got some minutes and played well, knocked down some threes, and it's like there's just not many minutes to go around on this team.
I know I want to bring up the Chaz, but I don't want to go off on that tangent. That ship has sailed for this season, but it definitely makes us all excited that the Chazmanian Devil can definitely get some minutes going forward, and we all know he has a place in this team in this Pistons rotation moving forward. Highlight of this podcast, the title of this podcast, though, is the depth for the Pistons has shined through all season. We started off the top talking about injury stuff, but guess what? The Pistons are still waiting. Stu dropped 31. We had Sasser explode. We've had Ron Holland blow up for like 20 plus points a couple times. Ivy's had his moments here and there. Karras, even though we criticize him, he's continued to knock down big threes. Duncan's continued to just shine through and be the spacer that this team absolutely 1000% needs. The depth has continued to shine through. We even with Kate not out there in that game against the Bulls where Stu had 31, they didn't have Kate in that game, right? So they've still continued to shine through with the depth. Is this the deepest team the Pistons have ever seen? Absolutely not. Number one, 89 to 90, if you're old enough like we are to remember the bad boys, those teams. I mean, the eighth man technically was like John Sally. So that tells you how deep they are. And back then, you didn't go like 10 guys deep. It was like nine guys deep if you were lucky. So yeah, and like Vinnie Johnson, the microwave would have been probably like the Nuggets or the Heat, these terrible teams at the bottom of the league by then. That he would have been their leading scorer back then, and he's coming off the bench for the Pistons. Oh 04, obviously. Oh 04. I mean, Mike James and Lindsey Hunter were like the 12th and 11th dudes on those rosters. So I tell you that squad was ridiculous in terms of its depth. And if you didn't watch that playoff run, Mike James, Lindsey Hunter, like they were integral for those that '04 team down the stretch. I mean, even the guys they near the bench like Mehmet Okur, um, Eldon Campbell was on that squad too. I mean, and then of course we cannot forget the legend, our sixth man for that squad. You remember Andy?
Nope.
Oh my gosh, Andy. Corliss.
Oh, Carlos Williamson. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
again, another guy that probably was a starter for a lot of other people, but man, again, the bench on that squad was ridiculous. This team, though, like it could be in the running for third because I did look up that one Grant Hill squad under Doug Collins that won like 54 games. Like John Barry was good, but then after him, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know so much about the rest of the depth on this team. I mean, to give you an idea of why this might be like the third deepest Piston team ever, Paul Reed is the 12th man. If you just look at it in terms of minutes, like Paul Reed is 12th, which is redonkulous because we all know how good Paul Reed has played. I mean, Dennis is the 10th man. Ivy technically is the 11th man. That again, that shows you the depth. And the guys we just brought up, like Sasser and Chaz, are down there at 13 and 14, and they could get legitimate minutes. I mean, Sasser definitely proved that he's ready to take a real role, but the time has gone on for this rotation. It's already kind of set, but he's still there, ready to get buckets. So yeah, this team, if you want to think about it, like third or fourth best Piston squad ever in terms of depth, like yeah, if everybody stays healthy and plays like this throughout the season, obviously playoff success is going to determine that ultimately. But right now, it's definitely looking like that is the case with again Paul Reed being like the 12th man, Ivy being the 11th, and Ivy could even jump up the standings if he ever gets some more minutes here. So what does this depth even mean, Andy? Like, what are you thinking when you say like, hey, we got Chaz and Marcus Sasser down here at like 13 and 14? Like, man, look at all this depth. What does it actually mean, though?
Well, I mean, outside of, and this isn't to just, throw shade on like one player, but if you went down the lineup, like maybe what? Bobby Clinton, maybe he's the only one where you'd be like, wow, he's not like exceeding my expectations of what I would want for him to do. It's like outside of that, everyone has been like, wow, I wasn't expecting to get this production from them. And like Sasser, he has been injured, so we haven't really seen him play much. But given the opportunity, yeah, he's putting up some numbers. So the depth, it's like they've hit on finding all these like hidden gems on people who can play, but if they're not going to get any playing time, then it turns into, are we just wasting talent that's sitting on the end of the bench that we're not going to be able to use or get something for? And maybe it's a situation where it's like, well, it's a younger person, so they're on a cheaper contract and we can keep them. But we don't really have that many in that type of situation. I mean, unless you're going to sign Jenkins to a Dennis to a standard contract, depending on what that looks like. I mean, Sasser's down to what I think maybe one last year on his contract. So it's like we can't keep them around for cheap. And like Javante Green, it's like somebody's probably going to be willing to give him some money, eventually. So unless you're going to move some of these players, you can't just keep them all. So it's a tricky situation. But then you look at someone like Jaden Ivey, who I think we're like tanking his value because we're not really using him. So are you tanking his value to re-sign him? Which honestly, that wouldn't make a player happy. Like, why would I re-sign with you if you're tanking my value? But if we want to trade him, we're not really going to get much unless we're hoping somebody's going to believe that we're just misusing him and he has more potential than what we're showing. So it's a blessing, but it's also a curse if we don't do something with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Blessing and a curse. Let's start with the blessing side of things, though. Number one, it definitely helps you out in terms of trades. Like you have a bunch of different contracts from a bunch of different guys right now. You can utilize Tobias as a big expiring, Karras as a middle of the road type of dude. You have the young talent who's shown something in the past, even though he's not showing much right now, in Jaden Ivey. I mean, even if you wanted to use Duran as like, hey, look, this guy's starting to ascend. He's still on his rookie deal. Both of those things make him highly, highly sought after in terms of trades, which a lot of teams there, even somebody like Paul Reed, who's the third big, and like I just said before, Marcus Sasser, who clearly showed like, oh, I'm ready to be a shooter, a third guard off the bench if that team in question trying to trade is looking for that kind of player. So yeah, absolutely on the trade market, it helps them out so much to utilize that depth and have a bunch of different type of players for a bunch of different types of trades. If they didn't want to do that and just be like, hey, let's just spread this out, it also helps in terms of playoffs. We just said a bunch of injuries here. It will help them, number one, in continuing the stretch. Like we just said for this whole podcast, their depth is what is shining through. It's going to help them stay in the top three. Like at this point, I don't think we really see them falling out of the top three in the East, right?
So in the playoffs, I still see potential that they could get like, and I'm not trying to jinx the team, but I see potential that they could get knocked off earlier than we would like. But in terms of regular season, I don't really see I don't really see another team that I'm even concerned about. Now, in a 7 game series, that changes. Shorten the benches, that changes. But just regular season, I think like you could almost guarantee they're going to be a top three seed, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, and even if the playoff stuff, because even for us, I mean, we're kind of the pee in the Kool-Aid podcast, for lack of a better term, right? We think that there's still issues, but even for us, the positive side of it would be like, man, look at the chemistry and look at how well this team works together. Don't mess it up. Just ride it out to the end of the season. Because even in that case of like, okay, we lost Javante, okay, Tobias is gone, but like, is Tobias going to get any better? Like, no, come on now. And even if they have the ability to re-sign him, it's going to be super cheap. I can't imagine there's going to be a bunch of suitors lining up for the 33, 34-year-old season of a Tobias Harris. And then you have Ivy and Duran, who you control with the restricted free agency anyway. So if you did flame out in the playoffs, you're like, okay, now we can move on and work something else out here. So even then, if you wanted to write it out, I don't think that's the best course of action to be honest and give my own opinion. But it's another course of action to where it's like it's not going to burn you because you still have a bunch of different outs and a bunch of different ways. And even Sasser has one more year on his deal. So if you did want to still utilize him, I can't imagine his value is going to tank unless he gets injured, God forbid. So yeah, a bunch of different things, and even somebody like a Javante Green, again, yeah, like you said, people are going to line up to pay him, but what are they going to line up to pay him? Probably the same like money that we'd be able to pay him in Detroit, right? Can't imagine somebody's going to throw more than like 10 or 15 million. I mean, 15 million for Javante Green would be bonkers. Even 10 million probably is going to be like bonkers for a Javante Green. When you have like Buddy Hield and Al Horford and these dudes who've had legitimate production for a long time, making under 10 million per year, like, yeah, come on now. So yeah, I think that's the benefit of having this depth and having everything lined up to where, yeah, you can trade a bunch of dudes if you want, or you can ride it out and still be lined up to continue the success and pivot if you want to in the offseason. But the downside of it, I think it starts and ends most likely with Jaden Ivey, right? I just don't take anything he's done seriously, not from his side, but from the way the team has handled him. Currently, Ivy is playing 16.9 minutes per game, I think. Let me look at it again before I misspeak. Yes, 16.9 minutes per game. Ivy technically is the 11th man on this squad. He's played 23 games. It's probably like 10 to 13 games past the point for me of being like, he's just getting his legs back or whatever. Again, we've seen all these guys get injured, and JB has been reticent to play him even 20 minutes per game. In the last 10 games where we've had all this injury up and down, Ivy's been available. We know he's healthy now. And in the last 10 games, JB has played Jaden Ivey 19.4 minutes per game. He's almost, I mean, he hasn't even cracked 20 minutes in the last 10 games. And it's like around a 3 minute uptick in the last 10 games. I don't get it. Again, this is the downside of the depth is you have all these dudes, but then somebody who you thought was part of your core and who we've all been, saying is we've all been led to believe. But what are we at now? 38 games into the season. We're really close to the halfway point, And this guy barely cracks the rotation. He's being treated like he's a journeyman or like a, rough rookie. I don't get it. It's not helping anybody. This the way they're playing Ivy is not helping anybody. Number one, it's not helping Jaden Ivey. He's not getting time with starters. He's not getting time with the ball in his hands. He's not really fitting into a role, which has changed all over the place, partially due to the injury stuff, but also because when he's in there, sometimes he's a spacer. Sometimes he's kind of a point guard. Sometimes he runs free in transition. Sometimes he doesn't. So all that stuff is not helping the young man in terms of his development. It's definitely not helping his trade potential either if you did want to end up moving him, because now teams look at him and they're like, I don't even know what he is anymore. 16.9 minutes per game would, for me as an outsider, be like, I guess he's not healthy. If I'm not in that building and I see them playing him less than 20 minutes, that's going to be my assumption is like, I guess they just don't trust his health, or maybe he doesn't trust something about it. And then in terms of renegotiating, it's the last year of Ivy's contract. He has to sign for something in the off season. You probably lose all form of, I don't know, any kind of negotiation help here. If I'm the agent, if I'm Ivy, I'm like, why am I going to re-sign with this squad who in the final year of my contract tank my value? They didn't give me an actual role. And now what I'm supposed to believe next season that they're going to give me a feature role. And what are they even going to offer to try and pay me now? Definitely not what I want if I am going to be a featured dude. Like it really, all of what they've done, 16.9 minutes per game, the roll up and down all over the place. You're going to tell me that that's going to get Ivy even like 20 million for like 3 seasons in the off season? No, absolutely not. And again, if I'm Ivy in his representation, I'm like, I want to go somewhere else where they're actually going to play me and actually have a set role for me and my skill set here. I think all signs point towards like they should trade Ivy now because I really don't see how at the end of the season with how everything has gone. And again, 4 games from the halfway point, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this is the cornerstone of our franchise. Oh yeah, we're gonna pay him. Or on his end, he's like, oh yeah, I feel confident that they believe in me. Or oh yeah, I know what they're gonna do with me because what we've seen on the court, what we've seen thus far, there's no answers for Ivy so far.
So even when Ivy was dealing with all the Monty Williams stuff, he was still a pro, never said anything, never gave off any bad vibes, nothing. And this season, at least for me, like he's the same as far as not giving off any bad vibes, not saying anything. He can't be happy. Like he's got to be so frustrated and discouraged because I forget how many games ago it was that he played like 30 minutes. I think for the first time he played a ton of minutes. And then you have a game where Cade Cunningham is not playing, and I think he only plays 20 in that game. So at this point, this is all coach's decision. And JB's had a great season. So this isn't like criticism for him. And he does have a full roster of a bunch of different guys. But at some point, you also got to decide like, who am I sticking with? And it doesn't look like he's sticking with Ivy. It looks like he's just gonna like this is probably the biggest role he's going to get this season is what he's been getting of about 20 minutes. And for me, I don't get it because and everyone said this when the season started, like we need to see what him and Cade and this team looks like on the court together. And it's like JB has a preference of playing Levert. And it's like, do you honestly think Levert is going to be a long-term solution on this team? No. Like, I don't get it. I mean, even something like, Dennis Jenkins, it's like, let's figure out how he fits into this. But, maybe they just decided when they brought in Levert that this was their commitment they were going to make to, which again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Um, but I agree with you. I think it's in the best interest for them to move Ivy just for him. Put him in a better situation if you're not going to play him. But they do have the flexibility that they could run this whole thing back and because of their record, you can't really complain, unfortunately.
But you can complain for Ivy for sure. There's just like, what in the world is going on here? And let's get some corrections on what you said. How many games has Ivy played 30 minutes or more this season?
Oh, I think he only cracked 30 minutes once.
Zero.
Oh, he didn't reach 30 minutes?
Nope, he has not played 30 minutes once this season. The game I think you're thinking of was against the Clippers on December 28th. He played 28 minutes and
Okay.
44 seconds. Yeah.
That
So
that
yeah,
would be
it's
the one.
yeah, zero games where Ivy's reached 30 minutes. You want to have a guess at how many times Ivy's cracked 25 or more minutes in a game?
Cracking 25, he's probably only done that like 3 times.
Once, I just said it, that 28-minute game.
That was the only one?
That's the
Yeah.
only one.
I mean, that's yeah.
Let's I didn't look at this one, but let's look at it now because I have the game logs of us up. How many times did Ivy crack 20 minutes or more?
4 times.
So five. So the first time he cracked 20 minutes or more was on December 15th against Boston. And then he did it in that 28-minute game against the Clippers. Last couple games, he's cracked 20 minutes, thank God, at least against Miami. And then January 5th against the Knicks, 22. And then that game without Katie only managed 20 minutes and 20 seconds. So he barely made it in that last one. Again, I don't think we get this. And even for me, who's been critical of Ivy, didn't understand his place in his role, like his shooting was getting better. It seemed like he's fitting more into defense, is still like whatever. But being replaced by Karras, like, why? He's older. It's not like he's any better on defense. Sure, he's shooting the ball well right now, but he's never historically done well at that. Ivy's still in the fourth year, is very young, right? Still has a lot of time to grow. I mean, all you fools out there being like, oh, Jalen Duren's 22 years old, but they're not saying the same thing about Ivy. It's like, come on, man. Any guy that's under 25 years old, like, they're still have time to iron out their role, and still really figuring out how to adjust to the game. And then I just don't get it. On top of all this stuff, it's just like, well, if you wanted to trade him, like this isn't helping the case at all. I just don't get it. Even in the year with Monty Williams, you want to guess how many minutes per game Ivy played in the year where we all know that Monty Williams hated Ivy anyway, and he played stupid Killian Hayes. Although shout out Killian Hayes, he's killing it in the G League for the Canton Charge. But anybody want to guess how much minutes Ivy got, even with Monty hating him?
28 minutes.
28.8 minutes. So, yeah, I don't buy the. Again, JB is not without criticism. Sure, he's doing a great job for the team at large, but he's doing a bad job in terms of handling Jaden Ivey. And you can say both of those things. If you're the GM and you're trying to decide what to do in the final year of a contract, like, this is not what you want. Because then you either want him to be valuable enough that you can trade him away, even if he doesn't fit quite into your plans or quite into your system, or you want him to be able to be out there on the court and contribute to everything else. Right now, it's just like low value, and who knows even what his role is. And again, maybe that is more on the player and more the coach seeing like, I don't see him spacing the floor out. I don't see him like helping out on the defense. But who you can say those exact same things about?
Harris LeVert.
Bingo. So yeah, it's just and we already know what Karras is. Karras is in year 10, I believe, of his career. He's 31 years old. Ivy is 23. Like, come on, man. What are we doing here? I just don't get it. And it's not like we're talking about Ivy bumping somebody out of the starting rotation either. We're talking about Ivy getting Karras's minutes, which at this point is the eighth man. Like, I don't get it. Do you really think the difference between playing Ivy and playing Karras is like that gigantic in the difference between being the first seed and being like a fifth seed or something? Because the way JB is playing him, it does seem like he thinks that's the case, which I do not at all.
Yeah, no, I I am baffled unless they just don't think that Jaden Ivey is good at basketball. Is really what it comes down to from a coaching decision. And and I could see it in terms of Jaden Ivey's best things were his explosion to the basket. He wasn't a great rim finisher, but he could get to the basket. And then his three-point shooting, which his three-point shooting hasn't been great this year. Fine. And defensively, he's always had an issue. Fine. But it's like, to me, it just points to all signs being like, we we don't think you're going to be here long term. We're not investing in you, which
Again, to me, I'm like, I can't take any of that serious because the minutes aren't serious.
yeah, I would agree with that 100% that it's like, okay, I'm not playing Karis LeVert a single minute that I could possibly have Jaden Ivey in the game just because I either A, want to make sure that I've seen him enough that I do want to move on from him, or B, I'm trying to raise his value enough that I can get something for him, unless they honestly think that him being on the court is diminishing his value, which he has not been that bad, people. Come on.
Yeah, and we wouldn't know that because they don't play him, right? So it's even in the Clipper game, this last one where there was no Cade, that was the perfect time to try and prove your point. If that's the point you're making, oh, he's not that good. It's like, well, you only played him 20 minutes. You didn't let him, run the offense and go buck wild. He's been here 2 years. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. And we all see him out there fitting into the different roles that they have him into. He's not lost on any of these things, right? So yeah, the Ivy stuff is frustrating. I mean, we'll probably bring it up off and on, but I definitely don't want to give more of a definitive. I don't know. Maybe I have given more of a definitive take on it just right now, but like to dive into more of the numbers and stuff, and definitely the comparison with he and Karras at the trade deadline, because maybe they trade him and all this is a moot point anyway. But if they keep him after the trade deadline, that's going to be really weird. Um, and definitely we'll be calling for, and especially if Karras is still there, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel pretty strongly we're both going to be calling for like the rest of the way. You just got to play Ivy as much as you can.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, for me, Karras is like the most tradable player we have on the team, just for his salary and for his role. Like that would be the number one guy I'm trying to move at the trade deadline is Karis LeVert.
Yeah, and you got to get that money out of there because if you get that money out of there, you're open to a bunch more things. And if you do want to re-sign Dern for a contract that I wouldn't agree with, but like 30 plus million or whatever, then yeah, get Karras's money out of here because that'll just help out with that kind of stuff even more.
Yep.
So we've talked about trades so much, but we got to do an updated trade outlook now just because of after the Trae Young trade. And I mean, there's so many guys that have been reported out there on the move. Ja Morant now, the Grizzlies have said, yep, we're going to trade Ja. And then Zach LaVine off and on here. And then Giannis just going bananas. If you haven't seen Giannis lately, then God bless you. Don't look at Giannis now. I think it was last night he booed the fans in Milwaukee, right? Just like, dude, just ask for a trade already. Like, I don't know what you're doing. And I listened to an NBA front office show, and they've been joking about like his comments because one of the comments he made was like, "I'm not asking for a trade," and then he was like, "Well, my wife might be in love with me today, but maybe tomorrow she won't like me anymore." And it's like, well, what are you doing, dude? This is just bizarre stuff. So Giannis could be gone at any moment. And I'm not saying the Pistons should get Ja or LaVine or Giannis, but could the Pistons be a third team here in any of these kind of trades, especially for Giannis and Ja? Like they make so much money, it's so hard to find matching salaries. And if it is to another team, like LOL, the Bucks are reported as having interest in like Ja and LaVine. So they need somebody to help out with money there. I don't know if they can get all the money contracts to match up for Ja or LaVine. The Heat apparently like Ja too, so maybe the Pistons can get on that because unless they are willing to just trade up Tyler Hero straight up, the Heat probably can't get Ja. The Kings apparently just want off salary. Again, if you listen to the NBA front office show, that's what they've reported consistently over the last week is the Kings just want to get off of money. They don't necessarily want anything back because they're ready to just be like, all right, let's kind of start over now. And Milwaukee could do anything at this point, right? They could trade Giannis. They could bring in another big salary, which they've been able to do consistently again and again and again, even after we think like, they don't have anything left in their coffers. I mean, they still have Miles Turner, who's not doing great for them, but they're not exactly playing him like the way they played in Indiana. So again, Milwaukee could do anything. You ready for an example, though? I did put together an example trade, which I'm like, you know what, this works perfectly to give us an idea of like if the Pistons could be a third team to help facilitate a deal for Milwaukee, Ja, or Sacramento, one of those. You ready to look at it?
Let's hear it.
All right, let me share my screen with you all. And here's the saved trade I came up with on Real GM's trade checker. So we got the Bucks, we got the Kings, and we got the Pistons. For our Pistons, we would get Bobby Portis and Keon Ellis. Marcus Sasser and Zach LaVine would end up on the Bucks, and then we would send Tobias to the Kings, and Kyle Kuzma would also go to the Kings. I think this works on a bunch of different levels. Number one, Tobias is an expiring deal, so that helps the Kings get off the money of Zach LaVine, and then Keon Ellis is also an expiring deal. So I don't know that they necessarily want to pay him. They're not playing him right now either. They're playing him around the same minutes as a Jaden Ivey, and you know our love for Keon Ellis, and he'll fit in perfectly in this squad with his defense and with his 3-point shooting. Kuzma, even though he does have money left on the books for the Kings, it's a descending deal. And I believe they were reported to like him a couple seasons ago. So even though he's 30 years old, even though he does have money, it's less than 20 million going forward. So Tobias expiring, Kuzma there definitely accomplishes that goal if the Kings are really just looking to get off money. Sasser and LaVine both go to the Bucks. LaVine is a depreciated asset at this point. I don't know what Sacramento would get to for him really in this. And if they are just wanting to get off money, then LaVine's like prime target number one to just get out of there. You could do a lot worse than getting Kuzma and getting Tobias's money off the books. Maybe somebody sends out a pick in this too. Who knows? But what does Giannis need? He needs shooting. What do Sasser and LaVine do? They shoot that rock. Perfect fit there. And again, at first I was like, I don't know if the Bucks will really deplete their depth with Portis and Kuzma. And then I'm like, well, Levine's better than both of them. Number one, fits perfectly with Giannis. And I just said it, the Bucks would do anything at this point, right? And Bobby Portis immediately comes in and fills the role of what Tobias did. And he's a way better shooter, way better fit. You and I have wanted Bobby Portis for so long. I do feel a little bit like this is me like idealizing too much, and I love the trade too much to be not as objective as I could be. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? This does accomplish what all these squads would want with Pistons getting shooting and not, tanking their defense, finding two guys that fit in perfectly with what they already do. They don't really have a power forward outside of Tobias either, right? And they definitely don't have one that shoots as well as the Bobby Portis does with a championship pedigree. And then Sasser and LaVine fit perfectly around Giannis if they want to keep Giannis. And then again, Tobias and Kuzma help with the Kings' money problems. Your thoughts on this kind of deal where, again, the Pistons would help facilitate a trade for a bigger name for Milwaukee, Memphis, or Sacramento?
Um, I mean, obviously, I like the trade because of the players that the Pistons are getting, and maybe I'm too too sentimental, but I do see a hard time moving Tobias Harris just because of what he's done
You're
to
out of your
like
mind.
I know. I agree with you 100% that I'm out of my mind because it's Tobias Harris, but this entire team has changed, like the culture, like everything about the team has changed. And I understand like you have to move forward. You can't cling on to yesterday because that is not going to help the team get better. Um, I just think it's going to be hard to see Tobias Harris get moved, but I would do this deal in a heartbeat. Like I wouldn't hesitate at all. This would be like done.
I actually think Tobias might be the most tradable asset. You said it was Karras. I actually think it's Tobias because of the bigger contract, because of the expiring contract, and he has a hip injury right now, which may or may not be an actual thing. I mean, if you're hurt, quote unquote, during trade season, you never know if you're really actually hurt. But on the other hand, he's a 33-year-old power forward with a hip injury. Get that guy out of here now, please. I don't want to have to rely on him the way GB relies on him for those big minutes, and especially in the playoffs. It's just not a good combination if this injury is as serious as I think. And they're keeping him out for 2 weeks. I feel like you can't make up a injury where you say you're keeping him out for 2 weeks. So yeah, Tobias to me, if I'm Trajan, I'm like, I probably want to get him out of here. The money, just the expiring deal, is going to help out a lot, especially in these kinds of deals to help facilitate a trade. And if the Heat really do want like a John Morant, then yeah, I'm on the phone of like, hey, let's try and find a power forward for us to replace Tobias here. And it'd be really hard to do better than a Bobby Portis.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're getting someone who has playoff experience. You're getting a veteran who knows what to do. He's younger than Tobias. Like, I mean, yes, checks all the boxes.
Yeah, and Keon is still like probably my number one trade target. If I can get Karras out of here and throw Keon Ellis in, then yeah, please, absolutely 1000% do that. Please, please, please get Keon Ellis away from the Kings and somebody get him so you can actually play him and make a big success. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of think Keon's gonna end up being on Boston when all is said and done because he fits in perfectly with what they do as well. But really hoping Keon Ellis does end up with the Pistons when all is said and done. The other thing that I found, Andy, I found the perfect trade, believe it or not.
For who?
Time for the facts. Andy, you ready for these facts?
Let's hear him.
Let me pull up my facts real quick. Number one, all it would take to get this player to make the money work anyway is Jaden Ivey and Karis LeVert. That's all you have to trade to make the money work. Maybe you have to throw in a pick to get it done, but all it would take for the money to work is to trade Jaden Ivey and Karis, which I was very surprised at, to be honest, when I looked at this. This player is in the 99th percentile in efficiency differential in on-off numbers. It's in the 99th percentile. That means that on offense, he is in the 92nd percentile in points per 100 possession and in the 90th percentile in effective field goal percentage on offense. On defense, this player is in the 98th percentile in points per 100 possessions. And on defense, he's also in the 97th percentile in effective field goal percentage. I also looked up his defensive field goal numbers from NBA.com. You ready for those numbers as well, Andy?
Yes.
So on shot 6 feet and in, this player is allowing 61.6%, which is obviously bad. It's like, well, okay, you can't win them all, right? But on three-pointers, this player is defending 4.4 three-point shots per game, and he is allowing 30.1% from three-point range. And overall, his overall defensive field goal percentage is 45.7%, which is good. It's like league average, and he's locking dudes down from three. Like that 3-point number is better than only like two or three Pistons. A lot of the Pistons, unfortunately, are giving up a lot of shots from three and giving up a better percentage, like a way worse percentage than 30.1%. Who is this player, Andy?
I have no idea.
I'll give you a hint. He's been in trade rumors this season.
I still have no idea.
Oh my gosh, I thought you would at least throw out a guess. You ready to see who it is, Andy?
Yes, they're like a unicorn. Who is this person?
It's this guy, Laurie Elias Markkinen.
For real? The guy that everybody has talked about the entire time?
I know. Honestly, I've come around to it, especially when I found out that all it would take is Ivy and Karras. I'm like, you know what? I'm sending that deal plus a first round pick unprotected this year and seeing what they say.
Well, if that's all you had to give up, then yes. That
And the only reason I bring it up too is the Trey Young deal, and then Ja ain't gonna that deal's gonna be pretty bad. Like, what is Utah realistically expecting now? Either they're just gonna keep him, or they're gonna get a deal like this where it's like a young, promising player, something with the money to match and a pick. Like it would, I think it would be hard pressed to get a better deal than that. Maybe he is like the Mikal Bridges, or maybe he is like the Rudy Gobert, but that team would be foolish at this point due to like all the health concerns and whatever, which we still have the health concerns, obviously. And you and have been really shooting down the Laurie deal, but now to see like all the money, quote unquote, that it would take to deal him. And we just laid out all the stuff with Ivy and why we think he needs to be traded. Like that's what you need to be utilizing Ivy for if you're not going to re-sign him. It's for something like this. And sure, we still are like, I don't know if we want to invest the money in Laurie for the next couple of seasons, but if you're thinking about just re-signing Jalen Duren and that's like your big move, then why wouldn't you entertain this kind of thing? And you have the power to play Laurie, whatever it is that you want to play him down the stretch right now. Like I laid it out with the AD stuff last time, right? Of like, hey, just make up injuries, make sure you get into the playoffs, do whatever you got to do to get him there so you can have him available for the playoffs. And I mean, the AD stuff went down the toilet anyway for anybody with the hand injury, which was on Laurie, unfortunately.
do you like him better than Michael Porter Jr.?
Oh yeah, what are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Is that a joke?
Was not a joke.
I would not trade Michael Porter Jr. if he were free. I don't want that idiot anywhere near our team. Health concern. Shout out to Downtown Deuce, Boz, Sarah Boz, Everything King, and Eric Vincent. I just listened to their show from a day or two ago. And I think Boz brought up a great point where she was like, "Yeah, he's looking good now because he's the number one on that Brooklyn team. If he gets on this squad, he's going to try and make himself the number one on this team, even if he's not." Which is like, yeah. And then, I mean, I'm obviously not a big MPJ fan due to all his great podcast takes, which we don't need that either. You want to talk about messing up the chemistry of his team? Yes, let's bring in a dude who just wants to get buckets and doesn't play defense. Oh, and he doesn't pass either.
Well, the team does need a guy who can get buckets. The team does need that, but I do understand all the other concerns.
Yeah, again, the Laurie one is just, it's worth that price. If all it took was Ivy Karras and a first round pick this year, because then you're not having to tie up a bunch of future stuff. And if he doesn't end up working out, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we traded that pick. And now we're like in the sixth seed, or like, oh, 2 years from now, oh, he's still not back. And now we're like in the nine seed. Then it's like, yeah, that's not. But if it's just this year, then it's all just
So,
this year.
so what about this year and then 2 years down the road? So two first round picks.
Oof. I'd have to think about it. I think I would just again say, hey, you can get these guys and this pick this year. Let me know what you think. Hang up the phone and leave it in their court, right? Because if somebody's going to get a better deal, if somebody's going to give them a better deal, then okay, we at least tried. Like we said with the depth, one of the benefits is like you could just write it out this season too, and then figure it out and adjust in the off season if you really wanted to. It's not what we want to do, but it's a totally fine path that they can still build and do good things if they do the right trades and signer trades and stuff in the off season. Um, but yeah, if they're like trying to press you for multiple picks, like come on now. Can you remember last time some guy's been a trade and trade rumors multiple seasons and then the return for him was like multiple first round picks or like a bevy of assets?
Yeah, usually when they've been on the market year after year after year, the team kicks themselves because they were like, we held out for a better return and it got worse every year we waited.
Yeah, which might be the theme of this trade season anyway. Between trade between Ja and even between Giannis, who if they traded Giannis like a season ago, forget it. But now, thanks a lot, Luca. You ruined the trade market for everybody, I guess.
But yeah, I would totally do that for Lowry. No questions asked.
Yeah, definitely. So that's probably the last trade that we're going to entertain unless something else bonkers. Like tomorrow, if we wake up and Devin Booker's like, I want to be in Michigan, then it's like, all right, I guess we're going to fire back up the trade machine, but we don't anticipate that happening. So, Andy, let everyone know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
And we move ever so slowly towards the halfway point and towards the trade deadline. We're like 3 weeks away, I think, from the trade deadline. So very excited to see what this team ends up doing. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We will catch you next time. We're going to